Hi, Anu. Welcome to Galileo University. It's a pleasure to have you here in Guatemala.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Well, today is a very special day, and we wanted to have this interview with you because you are also a great researcher and professor at MIT, and you are having such an interesting and, let's say, very just-in-time solutions for many of the challenges that we are facing right now regarding energy and AI. But maybe we can start with a brief introduction about yourself. What do you do in MIT? What are the groups that you work on and you lead, and that kind of things?
Absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm really impressed. I've just seen some of the labs here, the mechatronics labs and the electronics labs. Just super. Wow. And especially going down all the way to high school students. That's amazing. Yeah. So what do? I am a scientist, a principal research scientist in the materials research lab at MIT. And we work on materials that will enable the future. So for example, right now, the future in the semiconductor industry is to integrate electronics with photonics. And what's photonics? It's just a way to use light for communicating data or communicating signals back and forth from, say, a data center to all of us, or even a self-driving car to the stations. Right. So communication, data transfer. Now, because of the way that we are using AI regularly, there's a lot of data being transmitted back and forth. And everybody wants high speed. You don't want to sit around and wait. You type a question on your phone to ChatGPT and you want the answer immediately. Right. Which means we have to have bandwidth, we have to have low latency, and you don't want to pay too much money, so we want low cost. Right. So energy efficiency, bandwidth, cost, and performance, all of them are to be simultaneously optimized. Right. And how to do that is what we're working on. Oh, wow. For electronics industry for today, but the same ideas can be used in LiDAR, automotive, sensing, and 5G, 6G industry in the future.
Wow, that's really exciting, because one of the things that, there are two things that are challenges within this AI era. One is we don't have enough power or electricity to support the future and the current maybe, but the future growth of AI. So everybody's building new kind of plants or power generations or renewable generation or whatever, in order to be able to support the future, the short-term future and the long-term future demand of energy. On the other hand, when you spend energy, you also have some footprint as well, and you want to minimize the impact on the environment and so on and so forth. So it seems like photonics kind of solves or will help to solve not only those two challenges, but also the specific challenge that you mentioned that are quite related to this impact or these needs. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Sure.
So I think you're asking about how photonics can help minimize energy consumption, right, while also minimizing the footprint, right, that our energy, our carbon footprint on the planet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So photonics, for example, right now, if it can replace the copper lines that are copper traces or copper wires, anything more than about a centimeter, one needs to move to light rather than electrons. Right. This is the best way forward, because when you have long copper lines, it heats up with the fast data that you're trying to transmit back and forth. When it heats up, then data centers are getting overheated. They are using a lot of energy to use air conditioning to cool the data center. And moreover, just air conditioning is insufficient, so some of them are actually dipping their entire servers in coolant liquids to keep them cool.
That's the current technology.
That is the current technology, yes. But those coolants, that's another problem that I can get to, which is they're using toxic chemicals. It's perfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, which are, again, bad for the environment, but we use it to cool.
Right.
And we use energy for cooling the data center. So photonics can alleviate two problems. One is the energy consumption, because if you transmit data by photonics, you're not overheating anything.
Right.
So that's one plus with energy. Second thing is photonics, the chips that you use for doing photonic manipulation does not have to have 1 nanometer, 2 nanometer, 5 nanometer nodes that electronics need for computation. So what we're suggesting as an early solution is use electronics where it's needed, which is in computation, but use photonics for communication, where you don't need electronics. In fact, electronics may hurt you when you're doing communication. So use photonics. Therefore, you don't need the 1, 2, 3 nanometer nodes anymore. You can go to 45 nanometers, 50 nanometer, 100 nanometer nodes, which means what? You use less chemicals, you use less energy, you use less water. So already photonics is helping in two ways. One is consumption of materials, and one is energy, right? And minimizing the toxic chemicals that we're using is a good thing for minimizing the carbon footprint. A lot of these chips, they use, they're called high global warming potential gases.
Oh, wow.
GWP, high GWP gases like NF3, CF4, CHF3 for etching in semiconductor devices. And there's no other solution to get such good devices. You have to use these chemicals. So with photonics, what we're trying to do is minimize the use of all of these toxic chemicals that leave a large footprint and minimize energy consumption.
Well, it looks like a perfect solution.
It is, but it has its own set of drawbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, not drawbacks, challenges that we're working on. For example, light sources. You need a light source, you need a modulator for that light source on chip. And those are hard to come by today, but there are people working on it, trying to make that happen. So there are challenges, but they're being met. Yet, right now, passive alignment of fibers to chips are something that really is not being used very much to minimize cost. If we can do that, then today we can start using photonics immediately for at least alleviating some of the problems. Not all, but some.
Of course, of course. I was reading the other day two related things regarding the heat and power consumption. And you know probably this better than me that there are several startups or projects that are trying to put or are already putting some of the data centers either on the oceans or on the space. What are your thoughts about that? Because with photonics seems like it's really a viable alternative to solve those problems right here in the Earth.
Yeah, exactly. So there's two ways: generate more power to support what's being done today, which is why a lot of companies, like the large companies, they're moving towards buying their own nuclear power plants, right? Because they need that kind of power. Today, for example, US uses 4% of its total electricity that it's using from its total electricity is used in data centers, running data centers. Yeah. So that's a lot of power. That we did some looking around, and it's enough to heat 17 million homes in the US. That's a lot of power for one data center, annually. So let's think about ways today to minimize that energy consumption, and photonics definitely is a solution. Everybody's moving in that direction. But building more and more power plants is necessary also, even with photonics. The rate at which all of us are using AI today, especially AI data center, we'll need that power. We definitely do. So going to space or going under oceans, trying to cool your data center, it's happening. It's happening. There's nothing we can do to stop it unless we put a tax on use of AI in the world. So if everyone who's using it has to pay for it, they'll think a little bit longer before they just check it out on their computers.
Of course. And you mentioned in a conversation we had previously that even Jensen Huang, from the CEO of NVIDIA, said that photonics is the future. So it's coming really, really hard. So
it's interesting, you know, we've been doing photonics now for almost 30 years or more. But the minute NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang went on stage, I think it was December last year, December 2024, and he had this fiber optic cables in his hand, and he said, silicon photonics is the way for the future. When he said that, all of a sudden, people were reaching out to us wondering, tell us more about photonics. How can we use it? Some people already in that space, they knew about it. But a lot of newcomers wanted to understand how they can implement photonics in their own data centers, in their own switches, in their own networks, and so on, because it is a solution. It's a short-term current solution that can be applied.
Oh, great. Great. Also, regarding your experience, you have also a lot of initiatives on education as well.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, certainly. We've been working very hard in order to make sure that we have a talent pipeline. So we don't just wake up one morning and say, how many PhD students do we need for doing this research? Because you won't find them unless you train them from kindergarten onwards to be scientifically oriented. So you have to start with kindergarten, primary, secondary, high school students, and then community college, university, and then PhD. So you've got to have a pipeline of students who are interested in STEM. So we are thinking that we should at least go back to middle school and start engaging with students in middle school, for which we're building TED-Ed videos. Our team is doing this.
Great.
They're building very small 5-minute snippets that you can listen, your children, and you can watch it together. And it says, oh, what is AI? How is it using so much power? So children understand the problems and the challenges, and they start to think in their own minds, what kind of solutions can we get? So we're going back in order to train the entire pipeline. Of course, master's and PhD students too, but also high school.
Oh, great. And maybe as a closing question on that, following that comment, because it's very, very needed. And also, what will be your recommendation for younger generations to get into scientific research and among all this new world that we are facing and we are all creating?
Yeah, I think just ask questions. Children should just be asked, think, ask questions. Do not be afraid that your question is a stupid question. Just be confident enough to ask the question. And we as adults should encourage them to ask it.
Right.
I think this is the best way to develop scientific temperament in students.
Yeah,
Inquire. Why is this happening? How can we fix it? Those kind of questions will go a long ways. And I think starting with elementary school students and bringing them to science fairs, science competitions, as you all are already doing here in Galileo University. You bring students from all around Guatemala, and then you bring them to a certain level and then send them to competitions, robotic competitions and so on. That's fantastic. That's a good way.
The motto of the university to inquire, to find solutions to real problems.
So you folks are already doing a great job with that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's a great advice, and I think it's sometimes underrated. But you know, the smartest people that I have found are the ones that make the right questions. And making the right questions is more difficult than you initially think. So I completely agree with you. So thank you very much for this interview, Anu. It has been a pleasure, and it's a pleasure to have you here at Galileo University.